All right. Hi, Cornell. Hi, Joanna. Thank you so much for joining me here
Hello.
today on Vonvo.com. Today's date is April 21st, 2013, and we're here to discuss gay rights in America. Just before we get our conversation started, I want to go over two quick things. The first is that right now this conversation is being recorded, and after the recording is completed, we'll be uploading this video to the internet to our YouTube channel. Is that okay with both of you?
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Great. And then on top of that, here at Vonvo, we're all about our discussions staying both civil and valuable. We don't want there to be any personal attacks against one another. Are you guys fine with that rule as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So then let's get our conversation started. For anyone who's watching inside the chat room right now and for anyone who's going to see this video later on, would you each mind just giving a quick background of yourself and why you're so passionate about this topic? And Joanna, you can go first, and then Cornell.
All right. Well, I'm Joanna, and I'm very excited about this topic because I've been involved in the queer community since I basically knew what it was. I have friends and I have family who are both gay, lesbian, bi, everything, every single thing under the sun. So that's why I'm here, to support them and to be active.
Great.
My name is Cornell Woolridge, and I'm here for very much the same reasons as Joanna. I have not been as actively involved in the queer gay movement as I imagine she has been, and I have plenty of friends who are who have been active and who are themselves homosexual, and even having the background that I have growing up, which is, very spiritual and very religious, I absolutely believe that everybody deserves the same right and opportunity to, whatever happiness means to them. And for me, that absolutely includes gay rights.
Great. So, just to sort of ease our way into things, Joanna, would you mind just giving sort of your overall take on the gay rights issue in America, and sort of sharing your opinion about where it currently stands?
Oh, sure. Actually, I'm very, very impressed with what's going on right now. I'm very happy that it's very progressive right now in this country when it comes to trying to get equal rights for everyone. We had law passed for women to get the same pay raise as everyone else. More states legalized gay marriage, including my own New York last year. So I'm very excited about that. And it's a really, really good time right now to be definitely to be active and definitely to be gay right now, because at that times in the past it was basically like you were completely shunned from your community, and now thankfully it's almost no longer the case.
Great. Cornell, anything? Do you want to just give quickly your overall stance on the topic, like as a whole, and anything you agree or disagree with what Joanna just mentioned?
Well, no, I do agree that in general, this is actually a really good time for the gay community because I feel like being gay in general is not so much of an issue. Now the issues that we're discussing more are, okay, in what ways does being gay, still keep people from being able to do different things in this country, and what barriers are left to be broken, what restrictions need to be taken off or loosened, so that the gay community, like every other community in this country, has an opportunity to pursue their own version of happiness. And I was really pleased this last election cycle last year to see a number of openly gay candidates be elected. I believe I can't even remember all the states, but I believe there were these 4 or 5 people that either won a completely new office, or I know there was a person that moved from the House of Representatives and ran for Senate. I think it may have been in Wisconsin. Baldwin, I believe, that moved from being in the House of Representatives to actually becoming a senator. And so to see a number of people within the gay community be open and upfront about and be elected on their merits and not be held back by that, I think is absolutely wonderful, and I'm quite happy about it.
Great. Joanna, do you want to add anything on top of that, or otherwise I can throw out a question that we could sort of build the discussion around.
The only thing that I'm worried about is, well, not so much worried, but somewhat worried about is Prop 8 with the Supreme Court and DOMA.
Can you elaborate on those? Can you elaborate on those two sort of subjects, and we can kind of analyze them?
Well, hopefully they rule Prop 8 unconstitutional, because it is unconstitutional by every means. There's no reason why you should deny anybody the right to marry based on anything whatsoever. So that on its own, and the Defense of Marriage Act, I hope they also find that unconstitutional, because, well, basically the same thing. Marriage shouldn't be defined as just between a man and a woman. Other people deserve to love each other and get married too. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Right. And so just more specifically, like the actual two piece of legislation, Cornell, would you mind just DOMA and Prop 8, would you mind just giving a quick background on exactly what those two, legislations state, like, what the critical sort of components of them are?
Well, as far as I understand it, the Defense of Marriage Act, essentially says that the federal government is going to legislate that marriage is specifically between a man and a woman, and so any marriage outside of that is not to be recognized, and that actually gave cover to insurance companies and any number of other organizations and institutions within this country to say that, okay, well, I know that you all are together, but according to DOMA, we don't have to recognize your partnership, so you all can't have, you can't have shared health benefits, and we don't have to let this person in to see you if you have some kind of emergency or in the hospital, because we won't consider them, your partner or anything of that sort. And so that, DOMA was pretty much created to, make it the, kind of the federal law that marriage is specifically between a man and a woman. And as far as understanding Proposition 8, specifically was a proposition, and this is where I get confused. So, Joanna, please, correct me if I'm wrong here. As far as I understand, Proposition 8 was actually created to actually nullify and to say that all gay marriages in California were nullified and actually would not be able to stand as legal. And now what is being looked at least was looked at by the Supreme Court, is, okay, is Proposition 8 actually constitutional? Is it something that can actually stand as official, legal legislation that, can be followed by the Constitution? It's not actually in violation of that. Did I miss anything, Jen? Is that correct?
That's basically right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Joanna, then what basically would you say that people are misunderstanding about this issue as a whole? Would you mind?
Well, I know that a big thing was that the Supreme Court didn't know why, at least for Prop 8, why it was even brought up to the court itself. And a lot of issue with that is just on the basic fact that there are so many civil rights issues that have been brought up to the Supreme Court that there are so many things brought up to the Supreme Court that have to do with basically what we're going through right now with civil rights and human rights and everything like that. So for even the Supreme Court to be like, I don't even know why we have this, makes me fearful that they're gonna just pass it off and nothing's going to happen from that, and people are just going to keep fighting, and then nothing will come of it because they're too afraid to touch that topic.
Right? Does that make? Do you agree with that, Cornell?
Yeah, I do, and I was kind of astonished by just the question of, okay, why is this even being brought before the Supreme Court? Because I feel like either on one hand the justices are not understanding how important this is, or on another hand, they are assuming that, oh well, this isn't really an issue. It should be assumed that gays, have the same rights as everybody else. So either on one hand they're completely out of touch, or on another hand they are, just not at all grasping the enormity of what this issue, will mean for the country. Because it's not as if we're talking about an issue in like Alaska. This is California. This is like one of the largest economies in the country. So it's also one of the largest. It's one of the largest states in the U.S. and it's one of the more powerful areas in the country for various reasons. So as legislation, especially on important issues like this, go in like California or Texas or New York, it's going to set the tone for the rest of the country. So for the Supreme Court to to kind of throw up their hands and wonder, hey, why are we even here discussing this? Yeah, I was kind of taken aback. It's like, are they serious? Are they really not understanding how important this is for millions, of people in this country, and billions of people across the world?
Joanna, go ahead and follow up. Feel free.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. It's either, they are completely out of touch, or I can't even fathom it, to be perfectly honest with you. The fact that, like, civilian court cases come up all the time, and they're questioning like this now, and considering all the strides that have been made, it's like, why wouldn't you want to judge this right now? So, I mean, President Obama just came out in favor of gay marriage. First president to openly do so in office. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And something that I want to point out, I mean, it's kind of off topic as far as the Supreme Court, and I feel like it's on topic as far as how big of an issue this is. I'm actually just looking on the internet and was reminded about something I saw the day before, that the Boy Scouts of America, actually, they took a survey within their membership of this issue, and they actually have brought the issue to, I guess, their Congress or what have you, their decision-making body, to decide, okay, are we going to let openly gay people boys be scouts? And while they're not considering letting openly gay men be troop leaders, there's still it's still progress. The fact they're saying, okay, we've surveyed a number of people within our community, and there's enough people saying this is something we should really look at, to have it brought before our board of decision makers and possibly change policy that has been we've stood firm in for decades and decades. So when I heard that, I both rolled my eyes at the whole, openly gay troop, leader issue not being discussed, and I kind of I clapped, because they're like, wow, okay, this is huge. This is such a symbol of traditional, U.S. And to have, a body like this, say in public, say, hey, we are going to take this issue to our, to our board, our Congress, and decide whether or not we're going to keep, this ban that we've had, is huge. And that being said, it also really, makes, the Supreme Court justices that are wondering, hey, why are we even discussing this? It makes them look that much more out of touch. Because I'm sorry, if the Boy Scouts of America are saying, hey, maybe we should reconsider this issue, and the Supreme Court justices are wondering why we're even discussing it, there's something not quite together there, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say, I don't know if this is 100% true or not, but I remember reading that the Girl Scouts of America were actually more progressive with letting gay girls in there and having gay scout leaders, but the Boy Scouts have been traditionally anti having a gay leader. Then that actually brings me to a South Park episode where they'll show that the straight leader is the one who's really molesting the boys, but the gay guy who's been there his entire life, who's completely 100%, 110% dedicated to the Scouts, isn't allowed to be a leader just because of his sexual orientation.
Right, right. I mean, and yeah, and I've heard for a while that in general the Girl Scouts have been more progressive on this issue and have not needed to, have not felt a need to be so firm and so no, there's no way we're gonna, rethink this. There's no way we're going to, even consider anything other than what we've done for so long. And like I said, the fact that the Boy Scouts are actually at a point where they're saying, okay, are we still? Is our policy still with the times that we live in? I mean, just that question, regardless of how it goes, just the fact that the Boy Scouts are understanding how important this issue is, and they're going to bring it up for discussion. That in and of itself, I think, says how timely this issue is, and how much there is a shift in our country's perception of what it means to be gay and what it means for people who are gay to not have the same rights and have the same abilities to be happy in this country as everybody else.
Right. So, would you each sort of mind going into a couple of different topics? So either the concept of whether people are actually because this kind of then reflects on what people are actually arguing about. So whether or not being born, you're born gay, if it's hereditary, or if it's something that develops over time, and then the idea of whether or not it's a right or a privilege. Would you guys mind discussing both of those two topics with one another? And I'm just going to continue trying to drive some more traffic to the site. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to start, Joanna?
Oh, sure. Well, first of all,
And just also quick. Okay, no, never mind. Go ahead. Sorry about that. Sorry.
Okay. First of all, I think it's been scientifically proven that you can experiment and claim that you're completely straight or whatever. And hey, I mean, if that works for you, that works for you. I mean, I'll go for it. But I mean, I think overall, everybody who's gay has been born gay, and everybody who's straight has been born straight, and everything in between.
And it's I find this question really interesting because I know I'm not I'm not a geneticist. I'm not a biologist. I don't know for a fact if you are born one way or another. And for me, I don't even feel like it's truly an issue because regardless of if you're born one way or not, and I get why that question gets asked, and I get the importance of it. And when it comes to the rights of people in this country, that's where I feel like it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's like saying, okay, well, you may have been born into the country, and you may be brought to this world as a Protestant, but you've chosen to become Muslim. So, well, I'm sorry, you don't have the same rights as these other people. It's like, hey, you know what? Whatever you decide to do, that should not, I mean, outside of course, choosing to kill people or do things that are clearly against the law, I don't really feel like what decisions you make in your life as far as how you live it, who you're with, who you love, how you partner with people. I don't feel like that should keep you from being able to find happiness. And I, as much as I may not necessarily agree with it, I say that goes as the same thing for like polygamy. I mean, your choices in life, unless again they are, explicitly illegal, I don't necessarily feel like whatever choices you make, whatever paths you take for your life, should really have any kind of bearing on what rights you get to enjoy. That the average citizen gets to enjoy, in this country. So, if I had to bet, I would say, that people are, born gay or born straight or even born, there are people who are asexual where they just, sex for them isn't even really an issue, period, regardless of straight or transgendered or whatnot. And, that being said, I think in the broad scheme of things, as far as, whether or not you deserve to have these rights or those rights, I don't really think I don't think it's ultimately important. I think what's ultimately important is, okay, you're in this country and by and large obey laws, and you are you're a productive citizen or whatnot, and you get these rights as long as you do those things here, and that's it. It doesn't matter if you like this color, that color, this person, that person. You're a citizen here. You follow the rules, and the rules have nothing to do with who you decide to share your bed with. Yeah.
All right. Looks like we have a question from Raphael. How do we reverse centuries of religious bias? You want to take it?
Well, I mean, I think we can both speak to it. I personally feel like we cannot reverse any kind of religious bias, because I mean, religious bias is based on, it's based on written word. It's based on any number of things that people can point to and say, hey, this is what this says, and I'm going to follow this in the way that I feel. What I do believe we can do is, I think we can feed more of the unbiased, because you can't make anybody change. You can say, hey, you know what? Let's do more to encourage, people being unbiased, but to try to fight people being biased, I think getting into any kind of fight, whether it be, for something or against something, it's still fighting, and that kind of energy only snowballs and makes things bigger. So I think the best way we can change the influence that religious bias has on this country is to feed those things that that encourage unbiased thinking, and encourage open welcoming, accepting thought processes, and just ways of existence.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Actually, another way that at least I think could work is I think that the bias that religious institutions currently have is it's a generational thing, and it's a misreading or misinterpretation of what their specific holy book says. And I mean, there are like several verses with like you can't be an unwed daughter, or else you're gonna be stoned to death, and
right.
like all of that. But they focus on the whole fact that if you're a man lying with another man, that that's an abomination. You blah blah blah. And so if you actually I guess read it and try to translate it into a way where it's not condemning but inviting, as you said, then hopefully generations later this problem would completely dissolve. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Right. Well, and I feel like the other way to address religious bias is, it's I find it so ironic that we have people in this country that are so firm in their religious views, which I don't particularly have a problem with. The problem I have is that they're so firm in their views, and they feel like, well, these views are the views that should be followed by everybody else. Meanwhile, they completely support our country going over to other countries and freeing these people from their religious shackles. So it's like, wait a second, do you realize that by telling people in this country that, hey, this is the Christian nation, and you're going to be, you're going to follow the tenets of Christianity, or you're going to go somewhere else, is doing the exact same thing that we look over, at countries in the Middle East and say, oh, well, those countries are so barbaric and they're so this and they're so that. It's like they've just been at this longer. They're not really that much different than certain sects in this country. They've just been at it longer, and they're in a country where they have actually accepted. Okay, well, we are going to be a theocracy, and we are going to follow this particular religious doctrine, and that's how it's going to be. And the people that fight so hard for this in this country, they're not able to see. Okay, wait, I'm actually doing the same thing, or I'm wanting to do the same thing here, and wait, what does that mean? Maybe I have more in common with those people over there who I think are so crazy than I want to actually, admit and be honest about.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a big disconnect there with the whole, they're bad because they don't believe in the same God as we do, even though it kind of is the same God.
Right, absolutely. I could not agree more. I have to laugh because, yeah, like I said, it's so clear. It's like, wait, stop. They believe that their women and their children and all the people in their country should do this and follow this doctrine, and you think they're wrong because people should be free to do what they want. Meanwhile, you don't want people who are gay to be free to do what they want here. So people can do what they want as long as you're okay with it.
Absolutely, they totally can. I mean, no one practices what they preach nowadays.
And it's really sad because if that happened more, they'd be preaching to a bigger audience. If people actually practice what they preach, they find, oh wow, we have more people listening to us because we're not just saying do one thing and we're doing something else. We're actually doing what it is we say that we believe.
Yeah, and religion will always control. Unless religion is completely dissolved, which I don't think is going to happen for a really long time. Basically, we're being controlled by, well, my thought process is this because I believe that this happened because this book says so. And I mean, we're never gonna move forward unless we can say to ourselves, hey, maybe they didn't actually write that. Maybe they actually do want, maybe the person who wrote this had a misinterpretation. I mean,
right.
At least I know that, in the period of the Bible, the word abomination didn't actually mean like you were going to hell, but it actually meant that it just wasn't natural for the time period.
Right,
and
right.
Now it is natural for the time period, so it's not an abomination.
Right, yeah, absolutely, and for me, even getting past interpretations or what have you, it really gets down to the foundation of, okay, what is it that people love about this country? They love the freedom. I mean, I wish people cared equally as much about the responsibility that comes with freedom as they do freedom. But people in this country, we love freedom, and so that being the case, is like, okay, regardless of your interpretation of what this book says, it's still it's still a book, and it's a book that you believe and you and other people believe, and you're free to believe that. You're not free to then say everybody else needs to believe this way, because what if Islam were to become, what if the population in the United States were to become overwhelmingly Muslim? Well, would you as a Christian be okay with them saying, okay, well, now since most of the people in this country are Muslim, we need to have a constitution or a government that supports Muslim beliefs? I'm pretty certain those same Christians would be like, wait, we can't do that. It's like, well, if this is what you're going to try to do here, you need to be prepared for that to possibly happen to you. And when you put it like that, most people are like, oh, well, that'll never happen. Like, well, there's plenty of things that people at one point said would never happen. I mean, Obama is president. I'm sure the people that never thought a black person would become president of this country. So never say never. You don't want to, have to deal with that. Don't put that out there, and don't create a situation where that becomes okay, because then you're going to subject yourself to being on the other end, and you don't want to be on the other end of that.
Yeah.
So I think Raphael is asking, there must be a movement that encompasses enough people within many of the large religious groups to change their doctrine and practices, but is there something that can be done to fuel such a movement? Well,
The first thing that comes to mind for me is megachurches.
I mean, and there are mega churches and even non-denominational. If you were to look at the trends, in this country, I think that the trends for a while have been moving towards, like you said, the mega churches and the non-denominational, where they're like, hey, we don't necessarily subscribe to one specific denomination. Now, in most cases, those places still tend to be Christian, so they're just saying, hey, we're not a Christian denomination, but we are Christian, and still, those churches do tend to be more open. They will have openly, gay and transgendered people in different positions, and not afraid to be out and to be with the rest of the community. So I feel like that's happening, and so maybe those are the kind of things that we were talking about as far as feeding institutions and feeding ways of thinking and being that really encourage a more of the unbiased way of being, as opposed to putting so much attention on those ways that are biased and trying to fight them, thereby actually hardening their belief, because we're under attack, so we have to stay even more firm in our beliefs, as opposed to not even giving them all that much energy, saying, hey, do what you want to do. We're going to spend our energy over here with these people who are unbiased, who are more open and accepting, and we'll let you do what you do as long as you don't get out of line.
As they see within each of your life's religious life, how open are your friends or who you know towards gays?
You wanna start with that?
It's funny. I was actually thinking about if someone were to ask something along those lines of that question. I identify personally as Jewish but not religious, or rather Jewish and not religious.
Right.
And I recently went on a birthright trip, and it was an LGBTQ birthright trip, which was a very interesting type of a mix.
Right.
But actually, Israel's very, very, in comparison to us, openly gay. I mean, they don't have the marriage thing down yet.
Right.
I mean, they've got a great nightlife.
That's really awesome.
Do. And so, one of our group leaders is an Orthodox Jew, and it was very interesting. It was very interesting to hear his side of the story, because he's gay and he's male and he's Orthodox. And
wow.
Orthodox don't necessarily traditionally they don't necessarily treat don't necessarily treat you as the same person that you once were
right.
in your mind.
Right.
But I mean, obviously he's the same person, never changed. So it was interesting that he had said that his family at first was kind of like standoffish a little bit, but eventually they warmed up and they're really accepting about it now.
Right.
So, I mean, I live in a very liberal area in New York. I live on Long Island. So
okay.
It's pretty liberal. So I know more gay people than straight people. And
wow. Okay.
Nobody really has a problem with any of it, thankfully. And thankfully, I went up to a school that was also very open-minded and very, very supportive of the gay community. So,
yeah, I'm looking at your shirt. Is it MCLA?
Yes, it is.
I know MCLA. I worked at Simon's Rock.
Oh, okay.
Awesome. Yeah. So in fact, at one point, I actually interviewed for a job there. So I was looking. I'm like, okay, I think that's MCLA.
I'm sorry you didn't get the job. Really am.
For me, as I said, earlier, I grew up in a religious household. I wouldn't say it was not a strict religious household. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to read the Bible every day. And my mother did, and she did not force that on me. It's more like, hey, this is what I do for me. This is what's good for me. If you want to do it, I'll certainly encourage it, and I'm not going to, dictate that this is how you live your life. I would say, amazingly, and it's been really awesome, really really awesome. My mom has actually come a really long way. I mean, both of my parents, my father and my mother, at one time in their life have been pastors. My father, when I think he may have actually stopped doing this before I was born, but if not, it was when I was really young. He was a pastor of a church, and my mother she actually was at one point looking to be an elder in the United Methodist Church, and so she was like second in command of the church I grew up in for a while, and so she absolutely is very it's very strong in her religious beliefs, and it's a part of her everyday life. And I remember at one point, I want to say this was after I graduated from college. I asked her about homosexuals, and I couldn't even remember what the question was. And I could tell she was really she was conflicted. She was like, well, yes, I believe in people having rights to this and that, and I follow the Bible that says that that's an abomination, as you already talked about. So I could tell at that point she's really conflicted, where she's like, okay, believe in this, but I believe in this, and these two things don't go together. And I'd say 2, 3, 4 years later, it was funny. I was talking to her on the phone, and she asked me, she's like, "You ever heard of this show, The L Word?" I was like, yeah, I have heard of this show. It's like, I've seen it a few times, and I really, really like it. I was like, wait a second, I'm like, you're still like this is still my mother, right? It's like, yeah. I'm like, it's like I don't know. I like the characters and the drama, and I'm like, wow. And at that point, I was absolutely, it was like, okay, like not only has my mom heard of this show, she's watched it and she's admitting to me that she enjoys watching it, like on a regular basis. And since then, last year when President Obama came out, openly for the gays having having the right to marry, I remember I called her. I called either that day or the day afterwards, and I asked her, I was just like, hey, how do you feel about this? I think it's awesome, and I was really curious of where she's sat with it, and she didn't respond. She didn't call me back for like a week. So I was like, okay, I wonder if she's uncomfortable answering this. And I finally got in touch with her. She said, no, I've just been really busy. Like I thought it was awesome. I was really happy to have him come out, for that. So I was like, okay, like my mom has come such a long way, from. I know at one point she absolutely would have said, I don't think gays should have the same rights as people who are straight, and she's gone from that to recognizing where there's a conflict between what she believes and and what she follows believes, and now being to a point where she can openly say, hey, I'm proud of my president for supporting gay rights and supporting, gays having the right to marry just like anybody else. So, I wouldn't say everybody that I know that is religious, in particular, is as open as my mom is, and I'm really happy to be able to see that transformation and to see the growth within her. And I would say, by and large, the people that I associate with, that I hang around with, they absolutely are accepting. One of my surrogate sisters, the sister of my best friend, she's been openly gay for a long time, and recently, I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, his brother came out. So, these are people that I've grown up with, that I've grown to care and absolutely love. So, I would say by and large, my people absolutely are open, and I know that there are people that I love and care about that are still making their way with it and may never really grow to accept it. We have another question. Let's see, what do each of you see as a direction of the gay rights movement in future elections? Given the fact that state legislatures pass defined marriage laws, do you see a mass change or a slow change? Well, I just talked a whole lot, so I'll let you start with that.
All right. Well, I think we did touch about this a little bit further back, but for the people that weren't here for it, at least in my opinion, change is going to be slow, but not too slow. We were currently at a point where we have openly gay politicians, celebrities, and a lot of people look up to people in power in order to kind of like find guidance. And so the fact that more and more people are in the No Hate Prop 8 campaign, and that there's fuel being added to this fire that we're currently that has been long overdue. I think that it's going to be a massive change, considering there are now transgender politicians, and the more power that people receive, the more it shows, oh yeah, people are equal to each other. So it's definitely going to be a change, not too slow, but not too fast.
I actually talked about this some last week. I feel like something that's really, really important is for the older part of the gay community to come out and really speak about what it was like, growing up, in say the '60s, the '50s, being gay, and how what kind of difference it's made in their lives as things have changed. And I feel like if the older part of the gay community can come out and proudly say, hey, yeah, I'm gay and I've been with my partner for like 25 years, I feel like that'll put another spin on it. So people, it's not something that is, oh, this is just something that's come about. It's like, no, this hasn't just come about. This is actually something that has been going on for a while. It's just we're just now finally in a place where people can really. Oh, hey John.
Hey John. Hi. Okay.
Hey.
I did it.
What are you talking
Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Raphael? Is that okay? He was commenting that it was too loud. So. Do you have headphones, John? Okay. Are we okay, Raphael? Okay, awesome. So I was just in the middle of answering the question that Raphael asked about the direction of gay rights movement in like future elections. Especially with states passing defined marriage laws and stuff like that. And if we see a mass change happening, if it's going to be fast, if it's going to be slow. And what I was saying is that I really feel like if the older part of the gay community can come out and speak about their experience growing up, being gay before it became as accepted as it is now, that would be something that could change the perspective, especially for those older members of the straight community to understand, hey, this isn't just a young person thing. This is something that has been a part of this country for a long time. And I also feel like if we can get just people in the gay community to be involved at a lower level of elections and politics, and be open about it and run for, local seats and maybe state seats, it can make a huge difference because it's in those positions that the real connection to what it means to be gay and, people can really be moved at that lower level as opposed to it having to come from the Supreme Court or having to come from the president and almost come down to some kind of gospel from on high. It can really be more of a just kind of everyday, oh yeah, my city council member is gay, my mayor is gay. These are people that are in my community that I see all the time doing different things. So it's not really so weird to be gay. It's just another part of who somebody is. So, Max, should we have John introduce himself or just go on with the conversation? Oh, okay, of course. So I guess why don't you just say a little bit about yourself and why it is that gay rights is important to you and you decided to join the conversation.
It's great what you were just saying. I was having a little bit of that conversation last night with some straight friends, actually, who were most in their 20s. Okay. And I was explaining to them that I have some friends who are older than me, in their late 40s, early 50s, who have had a hard time the past few years with the whole equality movement. And there's no longer that specialness that the gay community has anymore, that, that we were kind of left alone on the fringe and be able to do what we wanted to do. And they're having a real hard time, some of them, with this whole equality thing, just seeing people holding hands outside of the Castro in San Francisco or, it's just becoming what it is. And I've actually had these conversations with my softball team that I've noticed, because I'm in a gay softball team in the gay league, and there's 11 straight guys on my team and 4 gay guys, and most of them are in their 20s. And I've been realizing I've learned so much from them the past year that and my generation will talk about gay and equality. It's just like we talk about it. These kids in their 20s, they don't talk about it. It just is. They don't care. They don't look at sexuality. They don't look at race. It just is for them, and it's an amazing, amazing thing. So I really feel that the equality movement is on a really fast-moving train, which I personally find very exciting. I know there's some resistance with some people, and I totally agree with you about the older generation is maybe having a little hard time with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree.
As a 20-something.
That's awesome. It's the point you're making, John, about it just being something that is. I think that is so huge because it's not. I mean, it's still not completely accepted. And it's not such a complete taboo, as it was for, say, my parents or my grandparents' age. It was like, oh, that's not something you even say directly. You just allude to it. You just say, oh, well, that person has a alternate lifestyle, which can mean any number of things, but they knew what that meant,
Exactly, and it's a little funny. I mean, I always try to notice any times if I'm feeling a little internalized homophobia, because I think that is actually quite prevalent, especially with gay males. And I've noticed that around sports, which I can talk about a little later. But I was telling my friends last night, and I have these 3 new girls that I work with. They started at our job, and they're from all around the country, and they're in their 20s, and they've kind of latched on to me. And they were in the group, and I told them last night. That happened the past few times. We're sitting in the group, and they start talking about my love life or lack thereof. And because they're really interested in that, and they're kind of loud and talking about it. And I work in law enforcement, which is typically very conservative. And so, like, I told them last night, when you guys were talking about that, I was on the inside kind of cringing, like, oh my God, what are these agents thinking about hearing all this conversation? You're talking about my gay love life, and I just, as it was happening, I just said, let this go, John. This is the new norm now. Let him go. Let it be normal, and don't be afraid, because I was starting to feel that a little internalized homophobia. Like, what are these guys over there going to think about that?
Right. I cannot imagine having people discuss your life, and you're like, wait a second, is this okay? Is it fine that this is happening? Am I okay with it? And I think it's awesome that you did say, you know what, let's just let it happen. It's just a conversation like anything else.
Because it has to be. I think the main thing I think is important is, like, when you're talking about gay issues, that you talk about it like it's a normal thing, instead of bringing it up like, well, I'm gay and da 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 da. You just talk about it, and not make a big deal about it. Because if you're feeling apprehensive or scared, that other person is potentially going to feel the same way, because you're feeling that way, But if you just talk about it as a normal thing, everyday thing, I think that they pick up on that and see that as well.
Absolutely. Do you have anything to add, John? I know we've been kind of talking a lot. I don't know if you.
Oh no, I've just been listening. It's absolutely true. Yeah, I mean, it is the new norm now. We don't really, and there is that always like conservative homophobia that's like stuck inside of you that says, oh, wait a minute, can we talk about this? And it's just kind of like, oh wait, no, totally fine. Yes, you can. Carry on.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. There's even a show, I think it's on NBC, called The New Normal. And it's about, I don't know if you all have seen it, but it's about a gay couple, wanting to have a child. And, I've only seen one episode. I think I saw like the end of this past season. And just as it was being brought up in this conversation, it really kind of had an aha moment. I'm like, wait. This is actually the new normal. This is what the normal is starting to look like. That, talking about a gay person's love life is just talking about somebody's love life. It's not, we're talking about what